We've got some devastating news for the unemployed today. The TBATE fandom is in absolute shambles as another beloved series has been fed to the merciless anime corporate machine. And look, if you're a halfway decent person, if you're a sympathetic human being, then this is nothing to smile about. Luckily for me, I'm neither. Hey guys, what's the plan for season 2? The beginning after the end? Sure, this season may not have worked out, but you've still got 4 great seasons of anime to look back on. My god, Mushoku Tensei fans are so picky. In all seriousness, fans are devastated because the beginning after the end got an absolutely terrible anime adaptation that offers absolutely nothing of value. Or does it? Hello and welcome back to Binging Last Season. I am your host, Big Celery Little Stock, and today we are going to be approaching the beginning after the end from 2 perspectives. The first is mine while I was watching it, knowing absolutely nothing about the series, and the second is a fan from my Discord who offered me a little bit of information and explanation of why the fandom is so devastated with this adaptation. But let's start with the synopsis. Our main character's name is Arthur, and he was a king in his past life, but he was more of a figurehead who acted as a genocidal murder hobo. He gets reincarnated by a mysterious and godlike being who wants him to lead a more fulfilling life this time around, and he's born into a world of high fantasy and magic. The story is defined by forward motion, as Arthur never really stays in one place for too long, and we are constantly following him on his journey through life, through these different significant moments, meeting significant people, undergoing certain trials. We're sort of following the journeyman as his story plays out. And if that reminds you of something, then you're not the only one. The whole time I was watching the beginning after the end, I was just like, this is just like kind of Mushoku Tensei. If Mushoku Tensei didn't just every time something happened, they just fucking kick you in the balls, just stay down! And that's not where the comparisons end for me, because both of these stories are fundamentally a story about second chances. The difference is Rudy was a degenerate NEET who refused to come out of his house, whereas Arthur was a homicidal maniac with no family or friends to speak of. On top of that, a tragedy separates our main character from his family, where he has to essentially learn to grow up on his own, and he has a childhood best friend who's an elf and is super into him. Look, the comparisons are really obvious. Unless the source material just doesn't include any of those things, there's a little bit of borrowing going on here. But that doesn't make it bad. You know, some parts of the story are a bit touch and go, so it's not the best thing that I've ever seen, but it's not terrible. What makes it bad is the animation. I thought my buddy was exaggerating at first when he was talking about how bad the animation was, but then I watched the show myself, and it genuinely is zooming out from JPEG at moments, insanely low quality. But to be fair, I warned him this was going to happen, because when he first got excited about this adaptation happening, I said, hold on, buddy boy, that's getting adapted by Studio ACAT. For those of you who aren't aware, Studio ACAT is known for making adaptations that range between middling isekai slop and dog shit. And I know that because I watched the first 2 episodes of High Speed Etoile, and I have no fucking idea what they thought they were doing. Now, in their defense a little bit, the beginning after the end is probably the best thing that Studio ACAT has made so far. It's just the best they can do is middling isekai slop, which is what I felt like I was watching when I watched this show. It's just a mid-isekai. I don't really understand what the big deal is, and I didn't understand why TBATE fans were so upset about something so average getting an average adaptation. So I asked one of them. And when I did, StarMade sent me a fucking thesis. So I'm not going to read the whole thing in this video. Feel free to pause it though to get into the details. Just fair warning, there's a few spoilers tossed in there. But to summarize, one of the main issues that he had with the adaptation is that the fights looked terrible. And apparently, when it comes to the original manhwa, the fights are one of the highlights despite the medium not really lending itself to that type of thing. Apparently the fights in the beginning after the end are exceptional. And the way they draw movement is just amazing, and the art direction is incredible, and none of that was translated to the adaptation. Frankly, the fights in the adaptation, I don't know if I went into detail hard enough earlier, but they are embarrassing. They are arguably actually the worst thing about the anime adaptation for the beginning after the end. So if they're one of the main appeals of the original manhwa, I can see why the fans would be so upset. And the second main issue that he had was something that I didn't even know could happen. He was explaining story aspects from season 1 to me as they played out in the original manhwa, and it is completely fucking different. The original story in the manhwa was changed in very significant ways, to the point that as I'm watching this anime adaptation of something that's supposed to be a fantastic story, I thought the story was really mid. And no shit, I thought it was mid. Apparently they removed major moments of character development. They just completely added scenes where they weren't supposed to be. Take episode 1 for example. Episode 1 is mostly Arthur as a baby. Most of the time it's just him, crawling around, being a baby, figuring out what's going on in the world, having this deep voice internal monologue, and apparently in the original run in the manhwa, this is like significant moments of character development where we really start to sympathize with Arthur and we start to understand him a little bit better and we know more about his background. In the anime, it's just him shitting himself. It's just fart jokes the whole time. And I thought that stood out because I thought that was really fucking dumb as I was watching it. Before I knew anything about what this was supposed to look like, I'm just sitting there going, cool, is poop jokes. It's fucking peak comedy, bro. And I won't go into detail about the part where they're changing the story, but frankly, that shit pissed me off. Because, look, I'm not going to go into spoilers here, but I am going to say, if you have a story written a certain way and somebody just says, hey, I'm going to add a scene and a character that weren't there in the beginning and change the nature of a relationship to another character in this story, and, this is how we're going to put the story out. I, as the original writer, would be fucking livid. Like, I would not be surprised if if the original writer, first of all, completely fucking renounced this, and the show ran into issues in the future, I'm not even expecting a season 2. And frankly, I hope there isn't one, because I'm pissed off on behalf of the original author. I can't fucking believe they did that. So at this point, I kind of understand both perspectives on the anime. Having gone into this not knowing anything about it, I found it to be relatively enjoyable isekai slop. To be honest, it's in my lower tier of isekai slop. This was somewhere between a high 6 and a low 7, but it's still, perfectly acceptable isekai slop. But from a fan perspective, from all the major changes that they made, I understand why they are absolutely dogging this show and want absolutely nothing to do with it. Long story short, I gave it a 6 out of 10. It could have been a 7. There were moments toward the end that were pretty cool and toward the middle of the story, but frankly, it doesn't make up for the rest of the show, and this is just mediocrity is the best thing that this was ever going to be capable of. Starting spring off strong, huh? But don't worry, because I know for a fact there was some fantastic anime that came out in spring. I'll make sure to recommend one of them next week, and I'll see you guys then.